Welcome back to the new dawn here on Kiona TV. It is your premium breakfast show that is each and every weekday between 6 and 9 a.m. here on Kiona TV for the benefit of those who are catching us on Azam TV or on channel 398 as well as on digital terrestrial television on channel 803. That is where we are as Kiona TV, not leaving out the fact that we're also available on various social media platforms. We are there on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and not leaving out YouTube. So if there's anything that is happening in your community, feel free to reach out to us via our inbox or rather hit our DM on our social media pages and we will definitely reach back to you. I am Duduzile Matema, and a huge thank you to Leslie Phiri as well as Reginald for taking us through that discussion around politics. So as we're still having that discussion around politics, but this time around we are now having a discussion that is slightly different from what Leslie and Reginald were having earlier on before we started this segment right here. So Leslie did highlight earlier on that next week between the 5th and the 7th of July 2023, a carbon credit conference is going to be held in Victoria Falls under the theme Accelerating Africa into the Climate Economy. And this conference is being organized by the Africa Voluntary Carbon Credit Market Forum, that is AVCCMF. And in studio is one who is the public relations and stakeholder coordinator. His name is Angleston Sibanda. So he is going to be helping us unpack what carbon credits are in terms of how Zimbabwe is set to benefit from these carbon credits, and not leaving out the conference that is slated for the 5th to the 7th of July 2023 in Victoria Falls. Beautiful viewers at home, help me welcome in studio Angleston Sibanda. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Matema. How are you?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm good, thank you, and good morning to the viewers.
All right, amazing stuff right there. So, sir, as we start off this conversation, maybe you might help us understand what carbon credits are.
That's a good question. I like that. The issue of climate change, environmental conservation management is always a bit of abstract, confusing. Very few people understand it, and I like it when you ask that pertinent question. Carbon credits are credits, as it were, but we're not talking of credits as in the crediting of the accounts in a bank, but it is where you are given credit for having carried out activities that mitigate the effect or the impact of climate change. We all know that, perhaps viewers might know that in 1997, under the banner of the United Nations, there was what was called the Kyoto Protocol, where countries agreed to reduce carbon emissions. Following the Kyoto Protocol, there were then steps to then say to those countries that are polluting, if they are not able to reduce their carbon emissions into the atmosphere, they should then give money to those countries that that are doing mitigatory projects. For example, countries like Zimbabwe that have 27% of our country is a forest. So a country like Zimbabwe stands to then benefit from carbon credits. We then get credit. We then sell those credits to companies that pollute. For example, you have your Volkswagen, your BMW, your Coca-Cola. They can't grow trees where they are because the environment is not conducive, but they can come to us here in Bulawayo and to the communities and to people, companies that work here and say, you guys are planting trees, or you are doing what is called carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration is where you do activities that clean the atmosphere. For example, if you are planting what is called industrial hemp, Industrial hemp is one of the plants that are used to clean the environment. So you then get paid for doing that. So in short, I want to say to viewers, there is money in conserving the environment. There is money in planting trees. There is money in, I should say in short, my CEO always says, money grows on trees.
Quite interesting right there from Mr. Angleston Sibanda, as he is taking us through what carbon credits are. So, Mr. Sibanda, the other thing that I want us to have a discussion on is the conference that is going to be held in Victoria Falls. What does it mean for the organization?
It is the inaugural conference, the first ever, I call it first edition. And it is the first ever in Africa. Because the issue of climate change, climate mitigation has been, in fact, rather, climate change has been taking its toll on many African countries. The change in weather patterns, we've seen number of cyclones, the number of droughts, severe droughts. Now, the discussion has been that now that there is money that goes around with activities that reduce carbon emissions, African countries are the ones that have been suffering, yet they did not commit a crime, because African countries have not been found to be the ones that are polluting the environment as compared to the developed world. Yeah. So now the discussion, therefore, is that we want to we are breaking the ice, you know, bringing this event is going to be attended by dignitaries and ministers from Ghana, from Uganda, from Malawi, Zambia, stakeholders, buyers of carbon credits, though, and the auditors, those that can come to you and say the trees in this community emit so much oxygen into the atmosphere, and therefore your carbon credits are so much. Those are the auditors that have the technology. So they will also be there at the Victoria Falls, and also we will also be having government, because government is coming up with a regulatory framework that seeks to then create order or sanitize the space, because there has not been any law in any African country. That's why this conference is very important, because no African country has ever come up with a regulatory framework that seeks to create order or to sanitize or to regulate the carbon credit business. So Zimbabwe is the first country to do that in Africa, and it's going to be done in Victoria Falls, the only inland or offshore financial services sector, more or less like what Singapore is. But that's what Victoria Falls is. I think viewers need to understand that in Victoria Falls is a different environment altogether. It is a US dollar denominated economy. So that's why we are taking it to the Victoria Falls with the hope that after this conference, we then want to get people to trade their carbon credits on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange.
Oh, quite interesting right there. So, Mr. Sibanda, as you're highlighting the fact that this time around you're having it in Victoria Falls, that is the conference that will be held between the 5th and the 7th of July. So the one thing that I also need to understand, sir, is the fact that do you have any prospects into including the wider globe, not just Africa?
Yes. Just like we say that it's the first of its own kind, first in Africa, but then we as we coordinate, what's important is for African countries to come together, have one voice, so that we are able to make an impact in the global markets. But you cannot trade in carbon credits in isolation. Basically, the buyers actually those in the developed world. So it's actually a bilateral trade, as it were, between Africa and the rest of the world, because the buyers, those that emit and those that are in need to buy the credits are in the developed world. So Africa cannot do this alone. It's a global war. And by the way, the war against climate change is a global war, because when someone, I always say, put it this way to simplify, the issue of climate, the war against climate change is like prayer. When someone is praying in Beijing and someone is praying in Dar es Salaam and someone is praying in Matobo, God hears all their prayers. When someone pollutes from Beijing and someone pollutes from Moscow and someone pollutes from Washington, they all affect the same environment. So it therefore follows that when someone pollutes in Beijing, someone in Cholocho can clean the pollution by releasing, sequestrating or cleaning the environment through afforestation, for example, increasing the number of trees in a particular area to emit a certain amount of oxygen into the atmosphere. So it's a global work. We work together as the nations of the globe.
All right, quite interesting right there from Mr. Engelston Sibanda. As we proceed further with this discussion, Mr. Sibanda, there are analysts who are saying that carbon credits are false solutions to climate change. What are your thoughts?
Everyone is allowed to have their views, but climate change is a reality. The fact that climate change is a reality, and scientists have proved that when we clean our environment, we save our ozone layer. Yes, people are allowed to have their views, but scientists, it's been proven by science that carbon credits, rather cleaning the environment, does help in solving the climate crisis that the world is facing. So it therefore follows that when one emits oxygen into the atmosphere, a certain amount of oxygen that tallies or supersedes or the amount of carbon that is emitted into the atmosphere. The scientific assumption is that, the belief is that is going to create, stabilize the atmosphere. For example, that's why in our rural communities, there is fresh air. You go there is so much trees, there is so much vegetation, and there is fresh air. And I'm made to believe that even, it's my own theory, that even COVID didn't kill so many people in Africa compared to the developed world, because we are breathing fresh air because of the vegetation around. And then these are realities. But then what has happened is that people have then decided to monetize it. They've decided to commercialize that, but it started as a way of incentivizing the poor countries that have been suffering from the effects of climate change. So the arrangement was that those that are polluting and they have money can actually give the money to those that are not polluting but are doing interventions that save the climate, so that they reach what is called net zero, which is equilibrium.
All right, quite interesting right there from Mr. Engelston Sibanda. So as we proceed further, Mr. Engelston, with this discussion, so on the 16th of May, Zimbabwe's carbon credit players were caught off guard when the government introduced mandatory regulations for the subsector, stipulating that 50% of the proceeds from the sale of carbon credits be allocated to government funds. Mr. Engelston Sibanda, what does this mean?
One, it is a big step, it's a giant step forward by the Zimbabwean government. Like I said, there is no government in Africa that had seen it fit to regulate the trading in carbon credits. What has been happening, therefore, because in the absence of law, people do whatever they want. So what's been happening is that, in as much as the carbon credits are meant to benefit the people in Cholocho, the people in Zarabani that are suffering from the effects of climate change when they have not committed any crime, but they've preserved their own environment. Foreigners, the same people from the developed world, have been coming, I usually use this word, they've been parachuting into those communities, signing agreements with the traditional leaders who have no iota of an idea of how much the carbon credits are worth, and then manipulating them, giving them piecemeal things. You get a borehole which is worth $1,400, and then you go about celebrating, saying, this company has transformed my life. Yet those same people take those carbon credits, register them, evaluate them, audit them, and then they make millions of dollars. So it therefore, the government saw it fit to then try and stop that kind of manipulation, whereby the same people that are polluting the environment parachute into Africa and then become the beneficiaries of the money that is intended to benefit our communities. That's unjust. So when in our climate activism, we call that climate injustice. So in order to try and stop the climate injustice, then government thought of creating a framework to regulate. But the issue of the 50%, the minister, I was part of that meeting. I attended the meeting in Harare, and the minister was clear that the proposed is 50%, which was going to be separate, shared between the local players.
Yeah.
So government is trying to then forbid foreign companies from coming into Zimbabwe and unilaterally trading on carbon credits. So they have to come here, partner with the local company, and then the proceeds, which is the profit,
All right.
the profit from generated from that will then be shared between the foreign company, which is the investors, and the local. Bear in mind that most of these people that come here and pretend to be investors,
Yeah.
they find our forest already in existence. You go to our areas around Hwange National Park, we have a large forest there, and someone can come from the UK or from wherever they come from,
Yeah.
and they start claiming that they are conserving that Hwange National Park. Yet Hwange National Park has been conserved, kept by the local communities together with the Forest Commission and National Parks and Wildlife. So government is right, in my own view,
Right.
to claim a stake, because it's unjust for somebody to just lend into Matopo and claim that they can claim the carbon credits from Matopo ahead of the community, or they just give the community something small to pacify them, and they make millions. So that's what government is trying to do.
Yeah.
And then the minister said the issue of percentages is subject to discussion. That's one of the issues that is going to be discussed at the conference between stakeholders. But the investors have to prove without reasonable doubt that they invested so much. Remember, in that meeting, there was a debate when the minister asked the stakeholders, some of them claiming to have invested 50 million, and the minister just asked a simple question and said, can you give us a breakdown of the 50 million? What did you do?
Can I just come in a bit? So when you're saying that they would have invested something like 50 million, investing it where?
That's what they were saying. When the minister asked them, then they said, no, we get there, we drill boreholes for communities, we paint schools for communities, etc., etc. That's neither here nor there. We can't be digging the graves. But now, progressively, then government is saying, fine, whatever has happened. Now let's moving forward, let's then regulate so that there is transparency, there is honesty, and people are not shortchanged. The investors don't get shortchanged. Government doesn't get shortchanged, because it's unfair. Look, you go to communities where Parks and Forest Commission is struggling they have rangers, they don't have resources, they don't have the vehicles to deal with poaching and so on. Yet somebody claims to be investing. So that's unjust. So I fully agree with government on that. However, we then need to then say, let's have a win-win situation. Those that came here because they are business people, they also want profit. So, but in that profit making, there also must be justice, equity, equality, and fairness.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mr. Sibanda. So as we proceed further with this discussion, some analysts are saying that they fear in terms of this regulatory framework, in terms of its ability to be transparent. You did highlight that the minister, whilst addressing stakeholders in Harare, highlighted that in as much as the framework is now in a place, it will be transparent. But in your own analysis and representing the organization, what's your take around the views or viewpoints that are being raised by analysts?
They are right. Like I said, it's their views, which then brings us to the reason why we are having this conference.
All right.
We are having this conference to bring those analysts, the optimists, the pessimists, and everyone together around the table to find each other.
All right.
So we are hoping that one of the outcomes of the conference is the stakeholders, the government, civil society, community-based organizations, our local authorities, and everyone are going to then have something in common that we are going to carry home and say, this is our framework. For now, the investors and everyone they're saying it's government framework.
Yeah.
But look, we cannot continue like this. At some point, there has to be regulation, either way or the other. In the past, the carbon credits business has been what we call the blue ocean, you know, where you just sail alone in the ocean. But now there are now too many stakeholders, because people have just seen that, oh, okay, there's now what's called the green gold, or the invisible gold. So now there is a stampede. So where there is a stampede, then there must be laws, there must be regulatory frameworks. And I'm certain that many African countries are going to follow suit, and I'm confident that some of us will then go out into those countries and help them set up, to come up with their own frameworks, so that at the end of the day, people are not, we have been used for too long as Africa. We can't continue like this. We have to take a stand. So we're hoping that after the Victoria Falls, everyone would be able to see this regulatory framework from one perspective, that it's actually meant for good. It's unjust to come to communities, gives people $5,000 and you make $200 million. It's unfair. So we want fairness. Because remember, Matema, that these communities that have the forests have been preserving them. I have been following people from Nkai, Pinga, the way their indigenous knowledge systems, the way they plan their farming activities. In Pinga, they don't uproot the whole tree when they are creating a field. Right. You just chop the trees, so that when you move, the trees are going to sprout again. Right. So there's been so much vigilance and hard work and ingenuity from our communities in saving our environment. We all know what in our rural areas, you go there, there are areas where you are not allowed to cut down trees, and if you do that, you are fined at a community court. Right. So I'll be happy if our Sopugus and our traditional leaders get something out of the conservation activities that they've been carrying all along. I would be so painful for somebody to come from New York, claim that they've been conserving the environment in my community, make billions of dollars and go away. That's unjust.
All right. So thank you so much, Mr. Sibanda, for that one. But there's this question that I want our viewers to understand at home. So you're highlighting the fact that the community needs to benefit. What are some of the benefits that they're supposed to be getting out of these carbon credits?
Excellent. That's an excellent question. First and foremost, communities need to, for them to effectively participate in the conservation of the environment, where we have been having a problem, for example, of poaching, we have been having problems of field fires. All right. The reason why people are doing that is that they are not seeing the benefits of the forests. Oh, right. So when people begin to see the money coming from preserving the forests, we are going to see a reduction in terms of poaching activities and in terms of field fires. My take would be that those people that, for example, those people that are poaching firewood need to be the punishment. If I was the one responsible, I was going to make their punishment being that when they get arrested, they spend 3 days planting trees in the forest, so that it dawns in our people that conserving forests has money. But people have not been seeing the money. Look, there's been so much money. I know one company that's been subject for discussion that made believed to have made over $138 million
from carbon credits.
From carbon credits. It's a lot of money. Can you imagine if only 30% of that had gone to those communities, and we set up community trusts that are managed by the traditional leaders, and people have access to that money. The community sits down to decide what they use that money for. We're going to see the sprouting of our primary health facilities, our educational facilities, a lot of development, as well as climate change related activities. For example, with $30 million, a community can actually set up a whole solar power plant to power the whole village.
Yeah.
So we're going to see meaningful community development coming from this money.
Absolutely interesting right there from Mr. Angleston Sibanda, educating us around the issue to do with carbon credits, what they entail and what it is that we need to know as a society relating to the carbon credits. He's highlighting the fact that between the 5th and the 7th of July 2023, their company is going to be hosting a conference around carbon credits in Victoria Falls, and that is where a number of detailed discussions around carbon credits are going to be held. So the organization is Africa Voluntary Carbon Credits Market Forum. That is the organization that is organizing this particular conference. So Mr. Sibanda, as we conclude this discussion, what are your parting shots to our audience?
The parting shots that I would want to give a challenge to our young people, that there is a lot of money around climate action. We call it climate or green entrepreneurship. So we are calling for young people to participate in various activities around carbon sequestration, around agriculture. There's so much that young people can do. And also just to tell our viewers that money grows on trees. Please, when you are cutting down trees and burning down forests, remember, you are burning your money. So we now have to work together. We are doing all we can together with government to make sure that we tap into this money that is out there from companies that want to offset their carbon credits and reduce their emissions. So let's work together to save our environment. Let's work together to plant trees, and let's work together to make sure Zimbabwe, the economy grows through green initiatives.
Thank you so much, Mr. Angleston Sibanda, for that one. He is saying that nowadays money grows on trees. Literally, that is what Mr. Angleston Sibanda is saying, and he is representing the Africa Voluntary Carbon Credits Market Forum, and he is the public relations and stakeholder coordinator. He did highlight earlier on that there will be a conference that will be held in Victoria Falls between the 5th and 7th of July, where a number of discussions will be held relating to the carbon credits. So the one thing that our viewers need to know around carbon credits is the fact that Zimbabwe is believed to be the world's 12th largest producer of offsets, with 4.2 million credits generated from 30 registered projects last year. So the country's largest project, encompassing 785,000 hectare stretch of forest in northern Kariba, is running part by South Pole, the world's foremost seller of offset. This is according to the reports that are found online. It has been interesting. The discussion has been interesting. It felt like I was in a biology or geography lecture here, but it was quite interesting. Thank you so much, sir, for making time.
It's a pleasure, and thanks to the viewers. And please, those that are able, do sign up into our website, www.africancarbon.com, or follow us on our Facebook pages, which is African. It's called African AVCCM.
All right.
AVCCM on our Facebook page. And those that can make it to Victoria Falls, I hope you'll be there. Do join us there, and probably we get to educate our people through your media on the fact that money grows on trees.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Angleston Sibanda, for making time for us as Giona TV. We really appreciate.
Thank you so much.
All right, it has been interesting. It has been fun right here as we were having a detailed discussion around carbon credits. But do join us after these messages to take a look at more issues that are happening around the world, as well as Africa, and not leaving out Zimbabwe. Stay tuned for more and keep watching Giona TV, the one, the only.